There are a number of things that make this neighborhood unique. In terms of the neighborhood itself, it's special because of water, because of Helotes Creek. I first came to the neighborhood over 50 years ago, and it was very unique to me to be able to swim and recreate in all the waters. And there are significant waters in the neighborhood. Both McNeil Park across the road and the Scenic Loop Playground Club were developed in the late 1920s, and they feature 5 dams that hold back Helotes Creek for recreation. So as a boy, I spent a significant period of my life swimming in these creeks.
It represents something from the past that's been preserved. It is certainly not your cookie-cutter subdivision. That is something that I cherish.
The beauty of this place is that it's still very natural, still very rural. My mother's family moved into this area in the 1800s, so long, deep roots in the area. I live out here because it fills my soul.
In 2017, a group of neighbors came together to form what would be called the Scenic Loop Helotes Creek Alliance. And the reason that we did that was because the City of San Antonio has a program where you can form a neighborhood, the purpose of which is to be informed when development is happening. So the primary reason we formed the association in the first place was to protect the tree canopy, to keep the dark skies intact, keep the rural atmosphere that drew us here in the first place. The neighborhood has turned out to be 6,000 acres, making it the largest neighborhood in the city of San Antonio.
From KSAT 12, the Night Beat starts right now.
At the top tonight, the fight to protect Helotes Creek now has the city of San Antonio's attention.
Lennar Homes is looking to develop nearly 3,000 acres next to them and will need a wastewater plant.
There's housing needed.
The company is looking to install a treatment plant that would release up to 1 million gallons of effluent into Helotes Creek every day.
According to environmentalists, the effluent would also degrade the Edwards Aquifer, which supports about 2 million people.
The head of the Greater Edwards Aquifer Alliance says it would impact all of Bexar County.
What you're doing essentially is recharging our aquifer with sewage effluent.
This isn't about not in my backyard. This is about not in my water faucet.
Lennar Homes has been unresponsive to our multiple requests for comment, and I am waiting to hear back from the TCEQ tonight. Live in Helotes, Hannah Tita, KENS 5.
About 2 years ago, we learned about the Wahalote project sort of by accident. A friend of a neighbor called and said, "Hey, are you aware that this project is potentially going in on the Wahalote Ranch?" And we were not. So we quickly sprang into action to learn as much as we could about what was planned for this property. We found that they were going to build 3,000 homes on the 1,160 acres. That was going to mean 9,000 people would be inhabiting this small piece of land. That is a city, if you will, 3.5 times denser than the city of Helotes. So you were going to have this very large group of people living in this rural area being serviced by a 2-lane road. That means 15,000 cars a day would be using our 2-lane rural road. Then we started thinking a little deeper. What happens to the runoff and the impervious cover because the Wahalote Ranch is 300 feet higher than the city of Gray Forest? What happens to the discharge from the sewer plant that they eventually decided they would discharge directly to Helotes Creek? How is that going to impact our local wells? And just as importantly, how is it going to impact the drinking water of the 2 million people of San Antonio? I think a lot of folks don't realize that we're just 3.5 miles from the recharge zone of the Edwards Aquifer. One thing I didn't mention is the Southwest Research Institute study that was done on this area specifically. The City of San Antonio and the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program hired Southwest Research, the eminent scientists, to study the watersheds in this area and to develop a computerized modeling system to let them better understand the sensitive nature of areas so they could do planning that made sense, sustainable planning. At the time, Southwest Research was given the latitude to choose where they would do that study. And they chose the Helotes Creek watershed primarily because it contains both the contributing zone and the Edwards Aquifer recharge zone. The important thing is the outcome of that. They studied all the various types of sewage treatment that were possible, and they determined that one type or another was not preferable. All types of sewage, no matter the style of sewage treatment, would degrade, they said, the quality of water recharging the Edwards Aquifer. That, of course, applies to the Trinity Aquifer as well. This is a fight worth getting into for several reasons. One of which is that the more we peel the onion back, the more we realize that the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality would seem to indicate that they are interested in preserving the integrity of the environment in Texas. But what we've found is that nothing could be further from the truth. Under the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, Texas has become the leading discharger of toxic materials to streams, rivers, and lakes. In 2020 alone, the Texas Tribune reported that 16.7 million gallons of toxic substances under the TCEQ were discharged to rivers, lakes, and streams in Texas. That's a #1 status that we do not want in Texas. The average person doesn't really get into this, but we have. And we're very concerned at what we're finding, that the environment of Texas is suffering dramatically under the TCEQ, and we feel that it's time that someone holds them accountable. The danger posed by the release of 1 million gallons of sewer effluent per day are primarily that we sit atop the Balcones Escarpment. So what does that mean? Well, it means that there was a severe faulting in this area, and if you look at maps, the faults are too numerous to even talk about. They're just everywhere. Where that works against us in the underground water is all of those fractures as a result of the faulting have left the underground water permeable. So we have no idea where something that discharges to the surface will end up going underground. Recently, one of our experts, Dr. Lauren Ross from Austin, she was asked if this discharge was going to happen in the Edwards Aquifer contributing zone, and she said yes. And then she paused and she said, but this is in the Trinity Aquifer recharge zone. Well, all of our wells in this area are drilled to the Trinity Aquifer.
If this project goes through, it's going to affect 16 wells on this property that is known as Sam's Ranch Road now.
And the impact that it's going to have on our well, we're all very concerned about because of the impact that it's going to have on the aquifer, our drinking water.
So this is the reason that it is so important to us that this be stopped. These wells are going to actually transfer from the surface to our groundwater very rapidly. Scientists say that it can infiltrate at a rate of 1 mile a day, which means that within 1 day of hitting the surface, our wells could be tainted.
Well, the immediate concern with this effluent will be Helotes Creek watershed. The other problem is what happens to that water as it goes downstream.
So that's a very significant concern when you're dumping 1 million gallons of effluent. And let's talk about effluent, because although they are required, meaning the municipal operations people who are seeking a permit are required to treat the effluent, there are a number of constituents of that effluent that are not treatable in a packaged wastewater treatment plant. You've probably heard of PFAS and PFAS recently. Those are forever chemicals that stay in the land. They are also cancer-causing agents, and they're just pervasive. And so we know those will be in the effluent from this subdivision. Now, one of the things that the TCEQ looks at is not degrading the water where they're dumping sewage. Well, you can't know that PFAS and PFAS and hormone interrupters and hormones and patent medicines and illicit drugs that cannot be treated by the wastewater system are in that system and think in any way, no rational person can think that the water is not being degraded. One day that stuff is not in Helotes Creek, the next day it is. By my definition, that's degradation. The other thing I would say is the TCEQ has a special process for these kinds of situations that happen over the Edwards contributing zone.
According to TCEQ's website, it states that the Edwards Aquifer is a drinking water source for the city of San Antonio and the surrounding Texas communities. Because it is a karst aquifer, fractures, caves, and sinkholes act as conduits to the aquifer from the surface. While this means that the aquifer recharges quickly after a rain event, it also means that any surface pollution will directly impact the water quality of the aquifer, possibly impairing drinking water and affecting the sensitive ecosystem.
The important points for everyone to know about this are that we are proceeding at this point toward a hearing that will happen on February the 18th through the 21st. We have very capable representation in the form of Eric Allman of Allman Perales and Ice. We have excellent expert witness, Lauren Ross from Austin, Dr. Ron Green, an eminent hydrologist. We feel very good about where we are right now, but this may end up having to go to the district court. If it does go to district court, we feel that we will be victorious there. The danger is that if this development is allowed to happen, it will open the floodgates to extensive development of the last unspoiled areas of Bexar County. And so it comes down to the future of our neighborhood, the future of the wells and the Edwards Aquifer, and the future of Texas's beloved hill country. We believe that all three issues are worth fighting for, but we cannot do it alone. We need your help. Help spreading the word, the call to action. Help raising the funds necessary to prosecute this fight, and help preserving this magnificent part of Texas that we call home.
A parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. They took all the trees, put them in a tree museum. Charge the people $1.50 just to